Volkl is a German tennis manufacturing company that originally founded its roots in the ski and snowboarding industry way back in 1914. For those of you that are well versed in the tennis manufacturing history, this is very similar to a tennis company called Head. Head. Nice. The tennis rackets have been used by ATP pros such as Yannick Noah, John McEnroe, and the playboy of all ATP pros, wait, that's Smeagol. That's not Roddick. There we go. Roddick Stepanek, which every WTA tennis player is dreaming to be able to kiss and hold hands one day. Flying under the radar though, Volkl actually has a line of tennis strings as well. Their most popular one, arguably, is Volkl Cyclone. So let's take a deep dive into it. Coming in at $129 per reel and about $9 per packet. This gear-shaped copolyester is actually somewhat unique. You don't see a lot of gear-shaped polyesters out there. They're usually either round, four-sided, five-sided, or even three-sided sometimes. So hovering at around $8 to $9 per racket. This is one of the more budget-friendly polyesters that I've been able to review in this channel. From the baseline, this polyester was pretty much on par with what I expected, except for one thing. It was very comfortable. When hitting the sweet spot from the baseline, I felt a really good amount of ball pocketing. Although I never actually felt this string bit the ball like the Solinco Hyper G or the Solinco Confidential, it gave excellent spin potential. Speaking of spin potential, let's talk about our today's sponsor, Tullamore Dew. Oh boy, if you really want to see the room spinning, take a few shots of this guy after your tennis match. It's going to hit you hard and fast, and most of all, it's a lot cheaper than Jameson. So if you really want to see spin potential, thank Tullamore Dew. Cheers. Yep, that's spin potential. Should have eaten something. The ball pocketing on defense was much left to be desired, however. Because this is a softer poly, it did have a hollow feeling when it comes to slightly off-center hits and shots where you can't set your feet and really rip and grip the ball from the baseline. It's not exactly bad, I would say. It's just when you're slightly off balance, be careful, the ball is gonna dip a lot shorter than you actually would expect. Slicers from the baseline, as I said, especially on defense, were okay. Drop shots are a bad idea from the baseline though, but we'll talk more about that later. Serves and overheads with the Volkl Cyclone were fantastic. Just like ground strokes, this string was very comfortable off slightly off-center hits, assuming you're having maximum racket head speed. When it comes to the slightly off-center hits, you're not going to notice a dip in power or comfort or ball pocketing if you're swinging as fast as humanly possible, assuming you're confident in your strokes. The only negative for serves and overheads I would say for this string is I wish it gave just a little bit more spin on the ball. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It does have good spin potential, but not as much spin potential as shaped polyester such as the Volkl Hyper-G or the Volkl Confidential. It was good, but I think it could have been just a little bit better. For the volleys and touch shots, this was the weakest part of this tennis string. Due to the hollowness being only minimized by maximum racket head speed, the finesse shots for this racket weren't there at all. The reaction and stick volleys were fine because there was enough force behind the racket and racket handle to generate a good amount of ball pocketing even on slightly off-center hits. But for the finesse shots where your opponent is giving you a slow dipper and you're trying to pick it off of your feet, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of gauge in order to get it just over the net, but not too much for where your opponent is able to catch up and hit another shot. My recommendation to overcome this weakness of this tennis string is to really not hit drop shots from the baseline, as you probably shouldn't anyway as a competitive player. And if you're a finesse player, I would actually look elsewhere. That's not to say that if you're either of those drop shotting from the baseline or serve and volley / finesse player, they shouldn't try the string, but there are better strings elsewhere that would fit your game. How I found out about this string. A friend of mine was practically begging for me to review this string. And to be honest, I did play with this string about 5 or 6 years ago, a few years after I got out of college, but I totally forgot about this, that it actually even existed. That's why on this Instagram poll, I influenced you guys to actually pick this string over the Luxilon Big Banger because it was kind of a favor for my friend. The friend of mine that asked me to do this review is part of the B-roll that you guys have previously seen on this tennis string video. By the way, if you want to vote on the very next string for me to review, follow me on Instagram, and I do polls right before I do a tennis string review for the next one that I want to play test. Link down in the description below. For some comparisons, this had more spin potential than the Yonex Polytour Pro, which I was a huge fan of, but it had less spin potential than the Volkl Confidential, which is currently my competitive / tournament string that I use to this day. And it did have that hollow feeling, kind of like the Volkl Hyper-G, on slightly off-center hits, although not nearly as drastic. For singles tennis players that haven't heard of Volkl or the Volkl Cyclone as a tennis string, I would highly recommend trying to scrap up $8 or $9 to try a packet of this. It might be the string that is a very good fit for you. Coming from the value, the pretty good spin potential, and overall playability and comfort of the string, you really can't go wrong sampling this string for a few hours. For doubles players, I could actually see this also being a good string for those playing around the 4.0 or higher rating for the stick volleys, the good racket head speed on serves and approach shots when it comes to any type of doubles matches. And as always, I will leave a link down for any of the strings I mentioned in this video down in the description below. If you have any questions, leave a comment, hit like if you enjoyed this video, and hit subscribe if you want to get notified on weekly tennis string reviews such as this. And as always, happy hitting.